Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher hakol nהיה bidbareh.
Chaim.
Chaim, l'chaim. Chaim v'libracha. Oh, goes down just like water. So welcome, Agut Tavach, Shavua Tov, everybody. A new week, new energy, a new battle to wage, a new war to fight, or it's the same war, just new battle. And who's the battle with this week? Well, God says to Moshe that this is the last thing you need to do before your 120 approaches, and that is the war with Midian. If you recall, Midian's effort, they got the advice from Bilam that you're not going to be able to fight them a regular war. And after Bilam wasn't successful with cursing the Jews, they were transformed into blessings, as we know. So he said, God of the Jews hates sin, and especially a sin of illicit relations, and together, coupled with that, idolatry. So the Midianite princesses were released upon the Jewish men. Many succumbed, and that brought a downfall for the Jewish people. So in our parsha, God says you have to wage a war against them. See over here, Jewish people were way up here battling. Could I see better over there? Here's Moab, who were there fighting, right? Balak was the king of Moab. They were battling over here. They had destroyed Sichain, Og Melech HaBashan, and Og Melech HaBashan and Sichain, the king of the Amorites, were further north. So the Moabites were frightened. So God says, don't start up with them. They were legitimately frightened. But the Midianites, way down here, they had no reason to get involved. But they got involved. They're just looking for trouble, looking for battle. So they need to be destroyed. And which is a very different battle than battling to go into the land of Canaan, right? Regaining, or not regaining, or taking over the land when they would go into the land, or battling those who were opposing, like Amalek, that came to fight them. Here, this is really bringing back the honor of the Jewish people. So let's go to this week's Parsha. We'll share the screen. Look at that. It's shared. Okay. Is that clear on the screen? Yeah? Okay. So from today's actually Chitas, learned it today. God spoke to Moshe saying, take revenge from the children of Israel against the Midianites. Afterwards, you will be gathered to your people. In other words, this is your last mitzvah that you are going to fulfill. So Moses spoke to the people, saying, arm from among the men for the army, that they can be against Midian and carry out the revenge of God against Midian. 1,000 for each tribe, 1,000 for each tribe. From all the tribes of Israel, you shall send into the army. Okay? Seems simple, right? Does anybody see here anything that might be incongruent? Do you see anything that's a discrepancy in the reading here? Go
It
ahead.
says it, take revenge for the children of Israel.
Mm-hmm.
That's what God said to Moses, and then Moses said, take revenge of God against Midian.
Ah, very good. Wendy. Psh, excellent, huh?
It was a cake.
The energy boost. That sugar rush always does it, always gives you the right answer. Who says sugar is not good for the system? Just don't fall asleep afterwards. Big high, big boost, and shoo. Exactly. Well said. Why should change it? First of all, what gives them the right to change what God said, right? That's firstly. Secondly, if you want to inspire the people, you know, they went through the experience. They know what it meant to their fellow Jew. And, they might have been an inch away from it themselves, right? So it was a personal matter. What happened to their people, some of them that of their family that probably are no longer as a result. So you would think that when he's telling the Jewish people that we're going to take revenge, when he speak about, something personal to take revenge of the Midianites, that would talk more to them than it would be taking revenge on this for the sake of God. So again, why does he change it when God doesn't say that? And rationally, how do we understand that? Okay, that's the first question. So this Shabbos will be Shabbos Mevorchim Menachem will be the Shabbos that blesses the new month of Menachem Av. Of is the name, but we also call it Menachem Av. And when we write a document, as brought down in Orach Chaim, it seems clear to me that if someone writes Menachem Av in a contract, it is valid, for that is the name we use to bless the month in all of our communities as well as in private letters. What does it mean? Menachem Av. Comfort. Close. Comfort. Who are you making comfortable?
Well, obviously, it's such a
Hmm?
it's destructions.
Right. So it's an uncomfortable month, you want to say? So who do we make comfortable? What was Menachem? Again, Av means father, right? Menachem means to comfort. Av means father. Comforting the father, right? What does that mean? Like you said, this is going to be the month of destruction. 2 holy temples that were destroyed. Many tragic events that occur in this throughout our history. As God said, when was the original Tisha B'Av? What happened? Excuse me a second. I don't know what happened there. Excuse me, folks. Something happened too. So in the meantime, want to answer my question? Anybody? Everybody.
Who are we comforting?
Well, what? No, what happened? What happened? The original Tisha B'Av.
Spies came back.
The spies came back. What did God say? Exactly. You cry for nothing. I'll give you something to cry about. This will be a day of crying. And so it was for generations. Thank you. Yes, for generations, that's what it's going to be. It's going to be a day of crying, right? So it's a tragic time for the Jewish people. And there we go, right? So we are comforting God. That's what we call it, Menachem Av. Menachem, comforting of the Father. Okay. Okay, sounds wonderful. And ultimately, what's the comfort going to bring? Bring the ultimate redemption. That's what, will bring the comfort. But this also seems a bit odd. It's very noble that we should be comforting God, but is there anybody else to comfort before that, perhaps?
Jewish people.
The Jewish people, exactly. The Jewish people went through a lot, right? They went through this day will be a day of tears for generations. So we experienced it. So if anything, maybe it should be called Menachem Ben, right? Comfort the child, right? We went through devastating loss of lives. We've experienced throughout the generations so much at this time. And yet the focus is not on what we went through, but on comforting God, right? Now, okay, fine. But where's our comfort first? And it sounds like it's a very lofty ideal, and in the comforting of the Father. So we're going to ask now another question, similar idea. So we have the battle of Midian, take revenge. So our revenge is for God, right? As opposed to our personal revenge, because we went through the devastation. Likewise, Menachem of, we're giving comfort to God rather than the comfort that is coming to us, right? And the third thing is, let's understand the topic of prayer. I'm going to see something similar there too. So Rambam writes, what is davening? What's the obligation to daven? Rambam says this commandment obligates each person to offer supplication and prayer every day and utter praises of the Holy One, blessed be He. Then petition for all of her needs with requests and supplications. And finally, to give praise and thanks to God for the goodness He has bestowed upon him or her, each one according to their own ability. So if a person has a crisis or they're in a time of distress, whatever it might be, with health, finance, relationships, emotional well-being, peace of mind, we know basic needs. So what do we got to do? Pray to God that God should provide it for us, right? Simple, right? God's like that vending machine. Just put in the money, press the number, and hopefully something will come out of the vending machine. I don't know if you remember the old vending machines. Sometimes you put in, your 25 cents for the bottle of soda, and what did you have to do afterwards? Exactly, take it, bang it. Now, sometimes you got to bang on your hand on the table, say, God, please. Yes.
My quarters. Instead it was a quarter, it was a nickel or a dime.
Okay, listen, let's not go back to before vending machines, Yeah. Yes. So, okay, that's the concept of prayer. And we understand that, right? You have a need. The biblical mitzvah, we pray 3 times a day. That's really a rabbinic enactment. The biblical law is you have a need, make a request from God. So it's at any time that you have a need, turn to God and ask God for that need. Okay. Mezitcher Magid, who is the successor of the Baal Shem Tov, who is the Rebbe, the teacher of the Alter Rebbe, right? Founder of Chabad, the author of the Tanya. So he says when a Jew prays, your focus really shouldn't be on what you're lacking. Although you may be lacking, you should put it to God in what He is lacking. Not your needs, but God's needs. What does it mean that God's lacking? So, He's not lacking the health that a person might be lacking or the finances that a person is lacking. Of course, that's not what is lacking by God, but what's lacking by God is the presence of God. God's hidden and he's not present, right? That he should be revealed. And there should be a dir b'tachtenim, a dwelling place for God in this low world, as the words of the Magid. This is how a person should behave as they stand before God in prayer. Their sole intention should be to bestow energy into the Shekhinah, divine presence. This then is what the Talmud states. One may only stand in prayer and pray with seriousness. Literally means a heavy head. In other words, the head of all heads, God. So stand before God and pray for the head, meaning for God, right? That's how he's playing on the words, right? It means in the literal, in the not in the literal sense, actually. What the simple meaning means stand before God in seriousness, standing before the king, right? You're making a request, know that you're standing before the king and make sure that that request is in a serious manner. So the Mizitcher Magid says, no. The heaviness of the head is like literally, the head of heads, God, refers to God. Though a Jew requests their own needs, they should have in mind that God on high should lack nothing. Right? Again, God's not lacking health. He's not lacking finances. He's lacking being revealed in this world, right? So the prayer should be this very lofty idea, which seems to be maybe beyond us, maybe something that's not so relatable, which begs the question. An average person, they feel their lack, something that they're missing. The very fact that they understand and they go to God for that is seemingly marvelous, right? Because many people don't do that. Either they suffer or they say, they complain. And what do they say? No one's listening anyways, right? To stand before God and know that God is listening, right, to your pain, that's a huge accomplishment. That's a huge accomplishment. Mr. Shimaki said, no, sorry, not enough. No, that's what you should do, right? You should pray for God's needs. It sounds great, but is that attainable? Is that something real? Now, you might say, okay, he's speaking to the Chassidim of bygone days, to the Alter Rebbe and others. But no, his teachings are meant for us, so it needs to be applicable and meaningful to us. How could that be? When we know, when we pray, as the Rivash says, I pray with the mind of an infant. Mind of an infant, right, is feeling that you're a little child before God, and an infant knows of what they're lacking, right? Infant doesn't know about anybody else's lack, their own. That seems to be relatable, right? That you feel like a child before God and you're requesting from your father. Wow, that's beautiful. Again, halavai that we should all sense that whenever we pray. I must tell you, I try to always be mindful of that right before I start the Amida. And because, it's very easy to just rattle off words, very easy. And not, really sensing that you're speaking to God and God is listening. And he is the address to where you're giving your connection and your needs to. that's human. That makes sense. Especially, we know that we are banim atem lashem lakechem, we're children of God, right? So therefore, a child, when they're, feeling the pain, so they share it with their father, and their father in heaven, he also feels the pain. But whose pain is he feeling? My pain. So the mayor said, when a person is in pain, what does the Shekhinah say? My head hurts, my arm hurts. Of course, God doesn't have, not talking in a physical sense, right? But so how do we understand, though, that we would be praying for the pain that God's feeling, right? If anything, he's the parent, we're the child. He should be praying for our pain, right? Now, think about it for a moment. You're the child before your parent. Something hurts you, and you say to your parent, are you in pain? What can I do for you? What can I be there for you? The child's in pain. Then they're thinking about themselves. What does it mean to think about God at that time? How does it make sense? L'chaim. Chaim bracha. Okay, we're good? All right. So we're going to have to dig a little deep now into some, deep Hasidic teachings in order to get an appreciation of the issue at hand. The problem that or the premise of the issue here is that what we are feeling, that there's my pain, and then there's God, right? And we intuitively will feel that they're, really two different worlds, so to speak. So I can relate to my pain, but to God's pain, don't exactly know how to relate to that, right? So therefore, focus on my pain would make sense and not focus on God's pain. But when we'll look a little more deeply, what we're going to see is something very different, that this is inaccurate. And the Maggid has come to teach us that everything of the human pain is directly connected with God himself. So let's understand. Okay. Now, we know that everything comes from God. There's nothing outside of God. Right? Whether it's the tiniest molecule to the greatest of all galaxies, there's no distinction. It all comes from God. What would be the distinction? We see there is distinction in creation, right? Let me see that. This is from Tanya, chapter 38. Broadly speaking, there are four taxonomies in this world: mineral, plant, animal, and human. They correspond to the four letters of God's ineffable name, the Tetragrammaton, Shem Havaya. Hold on, we got that here from today's class. Excuse me. Thank you. Right? Human, animal, vegetation, mineral, inanimate. Right? So one cannot compare the godly energy that animates minerals and plants to the godly energy that animates animals and humans, right? So that's in the physical world. Same thing is in the spiritual world. Souls, angels, and other heavenly hosts, you can't make, there's no comparison between them. What is the distinction between one form of creation and another? Why is there something called inanimate versus something that is angels and souls? What is that pending on? Anybody?
Realm, spiritual realm that they're occupied.
Okay, that's right. But what causes that? You mean one word? A one word answer. Anybody online? Tanya people, come on.
Tzimtzum.
Oh, that was Tim. Was that Tim? Who answered that? Was it? No, it wasn't no, Liba. Oh, it was Tim. Yeah, right. Okay. Tim is very humble, so he doesn't want to say. He's right. Tzimtzum, contraction. Everything comes from God, from his name. As you go along in the name means more of a tzimtzum, more of a contraction, right? Meaning infinite light that now is contracted. It's contracted. Let's go with the physical expression of it. This much. What are you going to get? An angel. This much. You're going to get an animal. This much. You're going to get a tree. This much. You're going to get a stone, a rock, right? Make sense? In other words, God is self-filtering the infinite light of God in a manner that what comes out as a result on the other end in the act of self-filtering of his divine energy, his divine light, will depend on how much that light has been contracted. It'll be then inanimate at the lowest level, and souls and angels on a higher level in the spiritual world, right? And everything in between. That makes sense? So, but what's important to appreciate when we speak about this self-filtering or contraction, or tzimtzum in Hebrew, please remember that word, an important word, higher and lower as a result, that's all in the realm of what we call Giluyim. Giluyim means manifestation. Gilui. Revelation. In God manifesting himself, there's different levels of that, how he channels that manifestation. So, for example, we just learned this in Tanya. When God manifests himself through kindness, right? He expresses kindness. Kindness can be expressed in many different ways, right? Can you give me an example of kindness? Okay, give me another example.
Bringing meal to someone.
Excellent. They're all different expressions of the same emotion, right? The emotion is the same. The expression of it is different, right? So God, how he expresses himself through kindness, for he creates light. He also creates water through the expression of kindness, right? But that's all the way he manifests himself, right? Similar to the way we manifest ourselves, right? You can have a deep feeling of love that will express itself in an act of kindness. It could express itself in so many different ways, correct? Is kindness, we call that a manifestation, right, of a quality of an individual, or here in God, right? Is that defining God? Or better yet, does that define the person? when you do an act of kindness?
Something good.
It defines you.
Well, it's a quality that a person has, it's an attribute.
It's an attribute, it's a quality, right?
You had said before, the fact that your dad, kids and blah, 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 that really didn't define you.
It doesn't define it, because it's just in that moment how you're expressing yourself, right? You're much more than that, right? Not to take away from the quality and the goodness of it. That's not the point. The point is it's not your core essence, right? It's a manifestation of you, revelation of you. Same thing as by God. Everything that we spoke about in creation is a manifestation of God. So in the higher spiritual worlds, God's manifestation is much greater. So therefore, the created beings will be much more lofty beings, souls, angels, and then all the way down to this physical world where we have in the physical realm a stone, inanimate object, right? But that's all, again, in relation to manifestation. Let's see from the Tzemach Tzedek how he explains this. Godly energy flows to this world through a medium called spheros, attributes, divine attributes of God, right? Which are vehicles God created to carry life to creation. Now, the godly energy that flows through these 10 spheres is limited to and defined by the contours of the vehicle, as opposed to the infinite light of God himself, which is unlimited and undefined. Right? In other words, kindness is kindness. It's not compassion. It's not humility. It's a different quality, right? So it's a vehicle that is limited, as opposed to God himself, that's unlimited and undefined. Is that clear? It follows then that the godly energy is also shaped by the characteristics of the vehicle through which it flows. So, for example, the energy flowing through the supernal vehicle of chesed, kindness, creates entities that display properties of kindness, like light and water, right? And so it is with the other supernal vehicles and their characteristics. So, this is called all the manifestation of God, and therefore there can be a distinction between higher and lower, distinct, right? But then when it comes to God as he exists before the act of creation, how did he exist? Not in a manifest way of kindness, right? Because kindness means what? There's someone to bestow kindness upon. So before creation, there was just himself, infinite God, right? In mystical teachings, that's called atzmus, the word etzem, essential being, right? The essential being, the essence of God. So, whereas the revelation of God is where God contracts upon himself and therefore filters himself through a specific manner of expressing himself, right? Atzmos doesn't do that, right? It's before the contraction, as the Rebbe Rashab explains. It is specifically in the human body where the infinite energy of God's very essence is expressed. To the fact that we have a physical body is not an expression of God's kindness. It's not an expression of closeness to God. Because closeness would be souls or angels above, because they're closer. This is an expression of the infinite energy of God from his very core and essence, that he chose the body not because of its value, but because he so chose it, because it's an expression of him. Okay. It's an expression of him. In other words, everything else in creation is not an expression of God himself. It's an expression of some quality of God. Okay, that's clear? The body, human body, is an expression of God himself. What does that lead us to? It means, as a result of this, is that when we feel a distress, where is that distress felt? Your body. Your soul doesn't feel distress. I mean, it might feel distress in the fact that it is imprisoned, right? But it doesn't feel in and of itself distress. Only its situation is distressing. Situation is already a created reality. The body feels distress of itself, right? Yes, it's caused by a situation. It's caused by something, right? That's a sign that God himself is in distress. It's not a sign of God's creative power that is creating something. It's a sign of God himself that he's in distress, that our physical reality, body, that what we're going through is in distress. I mean, God is in distress. Let's return to the words of the Rebbe Rashab. When God is in distress, it breaks the physical body. For God is most associated with the physical body. The essence of God himself most relates to materialism. All other lofty spiritual levels are associated with the soul, but the essence of God himself is associated with the body, for only God himself can create a physical body. God himself versus the power of God, versus the attribute, the quality of God. The quality of God creates the stone. God himself creates the body, right? So his relationship to the stone or to the angels and the souls above is, of course, there's a relation because there's nothing outside of God, right? But it's not essential. Essential is the relationship that God is to the body because he himself is the creator of the body itself. He chose it. Why? Not because of the quality of the body, not because it's special. Souls are special, right? That's why it's higher. That's why the light is more manifest in a soul. But that's manifestation, not essence. Getting the difference? It's very, very refined idea, but really important. Therefore, that's why God wants in this physical world to be present. Right? When you think about it, it doesn't make sense. God's not physical. What does he want in the physical world? That's what he chose. It is an expression of him. Should be here in this world. How will that happen then? Through the physical body of the person in this physical world that can create that home for God, for the essence of God, not for the manifestation of God. Not that God's kindness should prevail in this world, right? Everybody should see God's kindness. God is so kind. Let's all thank him. That's not what he wants. He wants he himself to be comfortable here in the physical reality. Well, that means the physical body has to create that in this world. If the physical body is in distress in this world, that means the presence of God will not be present in this world. If you're distressed, what does that mean? God's not prevalent in your reality right now, in your physical reality. Therefore, there's distress, whether it's emotional, psychological, physical, right? Whatever it is, doesn't matter, right? It's affecting in the body. That means it's affecting God himself. Does that make sense? A very lofty idea. Now we can make sense of what the Maggid said. How could an average Jew pray for God's needs? Didn't we say that we have to pray to God for our needs because we have to come on to God? Well, the answer is that they're really one and the same thing. They're really one and the same thing. Our material needs, whether it's for health, whether it's for financial needs, whether it's some emotional thing that we're going through, whatever it might be, are a direct manifestation of God's needs, of him to be more present in this world, whether it be more present in me, literally, right? And then I won't be in distress, or beyond me, not just limited to me, but beyond me. So we're bound up in the essence of God himself. Our needs are intrinsically bound up with each other. That's what comes out of this. Two sides of the two different sides of the same coin, right? That's when we feel pain. It is a direct manifestation of God's pain, right? So our material needs and God's needs are to be more present in this world are one and the same. Asking for one brings about the other. Go ahead.
If we could go back 2 slides, please.
Here?
Thus, when we feel pain, it is a direct manifestation of God's pain. That makes it sound like God has the pain first, and then we're feeling it. And yet, in your picture,
Oh, don't go by pictures first.
a little guy has got pain himself first, and then you're that. So what? It's sort of been flipped over, is what I'm saying, because that's how I see it. Because okay, let's take an example.
Don't take the picture.
No, let's take an example. You have an illness, okay? And so if you have an illness, that God feels your pain, God feels your illness. But here it's different. It says, thus when we feel pain, it is a direct manifestation of God's pain. It's been flipped. That's how I see it. Because we started out by saying what you feel, God will also feel that pain.
It's the flip side of the same coin, though. You're looking at it two different things. It's not. It's one and the same thing.
So
it had to be my pain came first for God's pain to be there. Okay, so
if somebody's in perfect health and has never had any pain whatsoever, they have no manifestation of God's pain whatsoever. So they don't have to worry about the pain.
could you imagine how painful that is?
I'm just saying, they don't
When a
have to.
person lives without pain, you know what that's called? Death.
Well, I don't know.
Yes, that's called death.
Some people have really.
No, then they're the living dead. Then they're not alive, and that is even more painful. That's even more painful to God. Yeah, in other words, they are so in pain, they don't even know they have pain. Right? It's so deep, the pain, that they fool themselves. If you're not connected to God, you are in the greatest pain. That's what the whole point is over here, right? In other words, when you are in pain, it means a disconnect. There's a disconnect. That's what pain is. There's some kind of disconnect mentally, emotionally, physically, right? Without pointing a finger, we're not pointing a finger here. It's a fact. There's a disconnect on some, right, metaphysical, physical level, right? That's obvious. That's what pain means. There's a disconnect, right? That clear? It's fine, which makes sense.
You're combining all.
It's all the
forms of
same.
Pain,
And that's all. It's all the same.
mental, psychological.
Mental and psychological. Excuse me. When you're nervous, who's nervous? Your body feels it. Your body keeps score, right? Someone said a nasty word to you. Who keeps score? Your body keeps score. Okay? It's in your body. Your body's feeling the pain. Oh, it's not physical pain. It's emotional pain, psychological pain, whatever you want to call it, but it's pain. There's a disconnect. The disconnect that you are having at that moment, God's having at that moment. Right? So what does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? That there's something just not aligned down here. Well, that means you're not aligned up there. As the Mizitcher Maggid, who were basing this about prayer, right? What did he say? He said that a small hole in the body is a big hole in the soul. In other words, there's a disalignment that's going on. You're not aligned. And that's why you're feeling pain. When you're aligned with the divine, then, truly aligned, then there won't be a, I should say that there'll still be pain, but there will still be pain. It'll be it'll be a different pain. See, here we're starting with the pain that we feel. What we're saying is realign it, recognize that God's feeling that pain. When you get beyond that, guess what? You're going to feel God's pain, sense God's pain, not even the way, and it'll be reflected in you having pain. But that's already that's more of a righteous, individual, that will sense it first above. We're not going to sense it first above, right? Although that's a true reality, because this world is full of darkness. And therefore, that means there's a lot of pain, right? That is above. There is above in God that pain. We don't sense that until we experience the pain. Now, what the Mizitcher Maggid is saying, recognize that that's not just your pain, it's God's pain. And if not only it's God's pain, for God, it's actually more painful, believe it or not. Right? Because he's infinite. So his pain is infinite. Now, we don't fathom what that means exactly, right? Because we're talking about now God, the essence of God. We're not talking manifestation of God. So if it's a manifestation of God, so it could be this much pain, it could be that much pain. By us, it could be this much or that much. By God, it's infinite because that's what it's touching. It's touching the essence of God. So it's actually much more painful than it is to us even. We're experiencing a minute of it, right? That's why, by the way, why it says better to have a little pain here, because what you will get later on will be many times greater than what we experience here, pain after this world, when we have to cleanse the soul, when God cleanses the soul, right? It'll be much greater because, that's all in the revelations and the revealed manifestations. We're not even talking about that here. We're talking about beyond that. We're talking about the essence of God. That's real pain. We can't experience it. We don't understand what that means really, because it's an infinite, right? Boundless. But that's how it's being, so to speak, experienced, if you will, for lack of a better term, on high by the core essence of God. Okay? So the point over here is that when we're feeling the pain, recognize that the flip side of that coin is God feels it too, and it's much more emphatic and much greater than it is. And it's the same pain that he's feeling. The difference is we're feeling it in the physical sense. He's feeling it in the lack of his presence, whether in us or in the world, which is him being present. What would that mean? No pain. Not just no pain, but the so to speak, basking in the sunlight of God's, reality and goodness. That's what that would mean as a result, ultimately, right? So when we feel distress in our world, it's an indication of distress on high. As our sages say, when a person is in pain, what does the Shekhinah say? My head hurts, my arm hurts. This and is what we should be praying for, the needs of God on high. When that need is fulfilled, it will automatically resolve our needs down here. As our needs are a result of God's needs. His needs are greater. His needs are infinitely greater, right? Of being present in us, in the world around us. His presence brings a lot more than just pain reduction, right? Brings a lot more than pain reduction. Solving the need on high on the solves the need down here below. So praying and thinking about God's distress and turning to the source of our distress, we can comfort God. Boy, will that be comforting for us. And in fact, that's what Chassidus says of why we turn intuitively, instinctively to prayer when something is bothering us, because it reflects God's pain ultimately. And therefore we naturally are bent on, turning towards God. As the Rebbe says in this week's Sikha, when a Jew senses material need, they instinctively pray to God. The deeper, truer story behind that is that the Jew intuitively feels that they come from God's close association with the Jew's physical body and the needs of that individual. And therefore, and it's something that God is pained as a result. So think about it for a moment. If we could, in our pain, think about what's paining God by the fact that I'm being pained. What could be paining him? So I don't suggest necessarily we're going to get an answer to that, right? But just the fact that we flipped and asked the question for ourselves, right? It'd be interesting what kind of insightful ideas you might come to and how that actually then will be comforting on how you can get through what you're going through. Because we're just experiencing it on the physical, physiological, emotional, psychological level, right? But there's something much greater than that, right? That God's experiencing. And if we can just, again, I'm not suggesting that we're not gonna know, but just what I do suggest is ask the question, because that will give maybe some insight of how I can now deal with what I got to deal with. Oh, this is causing pain on high. What could that pain, even though the truth is it's an essential pain, meaning just like when you feel pain, it just is, right? So it just is on high. It's like when a child is hurt, how does a parent feel? Pained. And sometimes maybe more pain than the child is, right? More pain than the child is. And is there a reason? No, it's my child. I'm pained, period, right? So that's what's happening here. It's my child. I'm pained, period. That relates to the core essence of the person, of the parent as a parent. That relates to the core essence of God. That's beyond manifestation. Oh, I'm pained. Oh, my child now is not going to be able to write this exam because they hurt their hand. That's a manifestation of an expression of why it pains you. Now, it may also find expression that way, but that's why you're pained. You're pained because it's your child's hurt, period. God's pained more than even a parent, well, ultimate parent, infinitely so, because just because. I'm just adding something. It's not part of this point. Is that when you think about it, thinking what is, it's paining just because, again, the parent's pain just because. But if you can then think about what might be paining, without, you're not going to know, but it flips it from what you are paining from, and therefore that might help also in getting through it. But the basic idea is that if it's paining God, and God is therefore inhibited from being revealed, and the very fact that you're in pain means he's not revealed. That itself is not a revelation of him within you. That's a darkness. That itself brings to healing itself when we recognize that. Right? And that's why we call this month coming Menachem of, comforting the Father. Just like in prayer, we have in mind God, right? Likewise, the month it's coming, instead of us seeking the comfort for us, if we go and bring comfort to God, that's going to the source. And what will comfort God is only one thing, Mashiach, right? To bring redemption. So just as destruction came because of baseless hatred, so rebuilding, the third and final eternal home for God, will be through baseless love of the Jewish people to each other, that will then take away the pain and bring the final redemption, right? And with this now, we can also understand in our Torah portion, right? God says to vindicate the people, and Moshe switches it around, right? To restore God's honor. Well, same idea, right? The fact that God speaks about avenging our honor is providing us the comfort. He is our parent. And the parent says, you got to avenge, I'm going to be there for you in the battle to avenge your honor. That's what the parent says. But then we recognize that if this is what we got to do, this must be the great pain for God, right? And therefore, we want to avenge for his sake. We want to do it for him. And in the end, they're two sides of the same coin, the same idea. The same idea. So here we have three things, right? Menachem of, Midyan, Battle of Midyan, the revenge, and the concept of prayer, that there's the human element of our, experience, our feelings, our pain, whether it's the pain of destruction in the month of, whether it's the revenge of what the Midianites did to us. And as we explained in prayer, that ultimately, if we can sense that when we're connecting to Hashem, that whatever pains us pains him even more, because us, the body of us, not the soul even, right? Because the soul doesn't experience I don't know how to call it, like inherent pain, because the soul is free and bound up to God. It's only because it's constrained. But the body's different, right? Body's different. Its pain is its pain, right? Its pain is its pain to such a degree is that from the body perspective, I can't feel your pain. I can only feel my pain. Only because I have a soul, so I have an awareness. I have awareness because of that you have pain too, and I could be empathetic to the pain that you're going through. But that comes from of a soul. But the body, so you might think, well, what's the body? No. Body comes from the core essence of God. And not from a revelatory manifestation of God's kindness, so he gave us a body. No. It's of him. Therefore, the body touches him. Therefore, it's only and therefore the body becomes the vehicle on how we make a dwelling place for God in this world. The soul inspires the body to do the work. The soul doesn't do it. Soul can't take a coin and put it into a pushka. The soul can't put on tefillin. It can inspire you, but in the end, it's the body that does it. So that is integrally bound up to the core essence of God's home here in this world. And therefore, anything that pains the body, pains creating that home down here as a result, the function of what it needs to accomplish, but it just beyond even the function, what it needs to accomplish, the very pain itself pains God himself.
That's a question on the first sentence. When a Jew senses a material need, they instinctively pray to God. Did you suggest before that a Jew prays to God only when they have a material need that they're seeking some feedback, I'll use that term? But doesn't the Jew also pray to God for other reasons? For thankfulness, or
Yeah, absolutely.
well, that's not a material need there.
But no, but the instinctual part is that when you have the need, the instinctual part, oh, I have the address for that need, right? The thankfulness, let's put it this way, let's put it in other terms. You've heard this from me before, and you're going to hear it again. What did you hear from me before? Let's see. Huh?
A lot of things.
A lot of things.
And one in particular, which you're probably gonna say, Helen, we'll wait till you're done, because I got something I need to. 'Cause
So, a college boy calls home. Say, hey, Dad, what's happening? How you doing? How's Sunday football? Who's playing today? No, son. How much money do you need? When do you make the call? When do you call somebody? When you need them. How often did you call somebody when you didn't need them? Not too, very seldom. Very seldom, right? Let's be real. We can try, but the facts are we usually make a call when we need the person, right? That's the fact. Okay, we try otherwise, but that's the fact. That's human nature, right? When do we make the call to God? We need him. To say, by the way, everything's wonderful. Thank you. That can wait, that call. Not when you have a need. It doesn't wait. So a Jew instinctually has a need. He makes the call to God. So God said, no, how much do you need? Right? So, but to say thank you, okay, we're not thoughtless, so we say thank you, but we don't do that as quickly, right?
I don't remember exactly, but isn't that part of the morning prayers when you wake up and you pray? Isn't that prayer for thanking Hashem that we are still here?
It's wonderful you do it, but it can be also mumble. How much are you focused? Let's be quite, you're doing your routine. We're not talking routine here. We're talking you really have a request and you're making a request. That's not routine. When we pray every day, not taking away from the prayer every day, don't get me wrong, but let's understand that's not the reference we're talking about here, right? We're not talking about here that, you just put on your tefillin and you say your Shema and you do your whatever you do, right? Of course, we have to work and that's it's harder work, by the way, to do that, to to recognize that I got to focus then, and I have to recognize that I'm standing before God and I'm making requests from him, right? Connecting to him, speaking to him, all those things. It's harder. Why? Because you do it day in, day out. So it's very easy to do it routinely. But when you have a need, and it's a very dire need, well, then there's no routine with that. Then you go and you take your Tillim and you start saying some Tillim, and you might even shed a tear. That's not routine. Okay, that's what we're talking about, right? That's the biblical command. In any case, it is the reference point over here, right? So the hard part is to make from the routine that's not routine.
But right at the beginning, the process that we follow is to thank and praise, and ask for what we want.
Right.
So we do thank. That's the way we should.
Yeah, but again, that's part of the routine and how the prayers are set up, right? That.
So my son, college son called and said, "How you doing?" Where he said,
Huh?
"This."
What?
Just like the college student calling his dad saying, "How you doing?" before he says, "I need."
Right.
Gee, Dad, I miss you. Gee, Dad, I was throwing. Gee, Dad, hey, by the way.
Yeah.
That's what you call a preamble.
Right. Right, but then that's not genuine. That's not genuine. That son was not genuine. Right? Did he care about the football? He didn't care about football. He didn't. So that happens to be the case, right? That's the case. So it's a challenge to be genuine. Not so easy, right? Why? Because you're focused on your needs. So here, the Mizrachim Maggid is telling us, don't focus on your needs, focus on God's needs. That's genuine. Before we said that was lofty. That's actually genuine. Recognize that, this is something that God has a need. God has a need to give you. Right? And give him the pleasure to give you. He wants nothing more. So imagine the child recognizes that that's what parent really wants to give to the child. So it's not about the child taking. It's about the child giving, that recognizing that this is genuinely what the parent wants. That's pretty, pretty lofty, pretty high-minded, pretty wonderful. Yeah. All right, folks, any questions? Tim, what do you have to say besides giving good answers? Thumbs up?
Another question, he just doesn't want to last them.
All right. All right, folks. TRC will be Thursday. Okay.
Thank you.
Be well. A good tavach, everybody. Be well.